What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNV Driversedition. And today we're going to dive into another interesting topic. If you haven't heard, GM has issued recalls. So let's dive into it. Well, if you haven't heard it by now, earlier in the week on Rick Conte's Tech Tuesday, he mentioned GM has actually issued a recall on the transmission. What makes this topic so interesting is because I've got a lot of messages, DMs, and so forth, trying to, I guess, use this for validation. It's not really validation, or is it? Well, before we get really deep into this, let's go through the formalities. My name is Sho. This is ICNV Driversedition. This is an interactive car community, which means if you reach out to me on any one of my social media platforms with a question, comments, or even just some remarks based off the video, or even in the chat below, I will do my best to respond. And if the topic you bring up is interesting enough, I may even shoot a video on it. Like I said before, I was watching Tech Tuesday with Rick Conte, always giving out some good information about Corvettes. And what I actually heard him say, or he announced, was that GM has actually issued a recall for certain VIN numbers for 2023 through 2024 for the transmissions on the C8 Corvette. Just so you know, it's not for every transmission, and not every car made in 2023 and 2024 are actually going to be affected by this recall. So what does this mean? There is a bad batch of parts out there. GM has recognized it, and your transmission could fail on you. So they're trying to catch it before you get into a bad situation. Now, let me address the real topic here. A lot of people feel like this recall is validation. It is not validation. Changing the DCT filter is not what's making the engines malfunction. It's not what's making GM come out and issue a recall. Like I stated before, if you don't remember, GM actually came out and shut down production due to lack of parts and so forth. And I try to explain this to so many people to this day. COVID has affected the C8 in a way that will always, I would say, taint its image, because many people feel like this transmission is faulty, and that's mainly because of COVID. I say that to you because I have a 2020 Corvette C8. I haven't had any issues with my car, and I'm well over 28,000 miles at this point. I've done the routine servicing that's requested, and I'm not even going to lie to you, based off my driving situation, I have pushed the limits of some of the servicing suggestions, but still I don't have any issues with my car. I haven't had one single issue with my car. Now, I bring up the whole production shutdown back then for the transmission parts, because shortly thereafter that happened, when GM can start back production, what I feel happened, and this is just my speculation and my opinion, is the parts that they got to replace the parts missing for the trans filter wasn't of the same quality, stress test requirements and so forth, because they had to use parts from a different manufacturer. And the next batch of cars that came out slowly started having transmission issues, which started the whole argument that, wait a minute, the Corvette isn't reliable. They're having transmission problems. When those transmission failures start coming up, just like any manufacturer, I feel like GM went back and started looking at the parts and maybe even did some tests. And this might have even been taking place while they were still building the cars to meet the demand. And they realized the parts wasn't the same quality that they require. It happens from time to time with anything that gets produced, with anything on the market. Sometimes when you get into a point where you have to go to a different supplier for parts or manufacturer for parts, and it just doesn't meet the same quality standards, meaning, say for instance, and this is just an example, if I have something that needs to be 10 millimeters thick, and that's the minimum requirements, and I go over to Austin's Instacart Ltd production, and they build their specs at 11 mils thick, it meets the 10 mil qualification. But if I go over here to Twin's Pro production manufacturers, and they build theirs at 14 mil thick. Although they both meet the same demand requirements of the 10 mil being the minimum, Twins is actually a more durable part. And sometimes when manufacturers shift manufacturers, they run across situations like that. And I feel like that's what actually happened to the Corvette C8 transmission, is when they shifted manufacturers because they couldn't get a part to keep the production going. It wasn't built with the same standards as the first company, which may have been just a little bit more overzealous with their production techniques. So now you have a Corvette C8 out there that has transmission issues, and people are now saying the Corvette isn't as reliable. Well, when you fast forward to today, and like I said before, the real issue with transmissions breaking down isn't a transmission filter replacement problem. No amount of filter replacements is going to prevent a transmission from breaking. The transmission is going to break if the parts in it are faulty. And that's what I've always stated in every one of these transmission conversations before, is the extra servicings of the trans filter, that's great and that's all. If that give you peace of mind, go ahead and do it. But the transmissions are failing not because of filter change items. They're failing because of bad parts or parts malfunctioning in the transmission. When people say, I feel validated now, and I told you that you were wrong, you didn't tell me I was wrong. This news recall is actually issued because there is a faulty part or parts inside the transmission, which GM knows is not a possibility of it breaking. It's going to break, and they're just trying to catch it before it does. Let's take a quick break, and do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, help me reach my goal of 25 before 25, which is 2,500 subscribers before the year 2025. We're chasing the movement. Be part of it. Join the channel, especially if you like the content you've seen so far. We have more stuff like this coming your way, and you too can help guide the focus of the content that comes your way. So subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. I've got a couple text messages and emails and DMs since this announcement was made saying, see, I told you so. And I don't really agree with you. So here's the thing. This transmission topic has been a hot topic for quite some time. Have you not noticed, or have you not seen in many conversation pieces, people are questioning the reliability of the Corvette C8 transmission? It has become so much of a topic that even now people are out there, I would say, over servicing their car, changing filters, being concerned about certain mileage and filter replacement timelines and so forth. Let's clear this all up. I've said this countless times before in Corvette forums, groups on Facebook, and so forth, or anybody that reaches out and asks me the question. Changing the trans filter does not prevent the transmission from breaking. Let me say that to you again. Changing your transmission filter does not prevent your transmission from breaking. I know some of you are going to think that's like an oxymoron, but let me break it down to you like this. Out of the transmission failures that have been out there for the Corvette C8, the percent of transmissions that have actually been malfunction, broken, replacement, parts change, whatever the situation may be, the number from clogged transmission filters affecting this is almost obsolete. And I say that to you so you can understand. The purpose of the trans filter replacement, the grooves and wears of the gears and the transmission, there are going to be some metal fragments and so forth that are going to come loose. The gears are going to wear into what's considered to be the normal driving habit patterns and grooves of your transmission based off how you utilize your car. Some people are going to drive their cars harder than others. So if you're one of those people who believe that if you don't get this trans filter changed at 7,500 miles, but you've already changed it before that, the history of getting your maintenance done on a car has always just been follow the timeline. If you hit the miles or if you hit the time, do the maintenance. So if you haven't hit the miles, use the time. And that's pretty much the best thing I can sit there and tell you with this. So when a lot of people come out and say, yes, this is validation, it's not validating that if you don't service your trans filter, that the car is going to break. That's not what this is validating. It's actually just validating that there is a bad batch of parts out there. GM has recognized it, and your transmission could fail on you. So they're trying to catch it before you get into a bad situation. You have to sit back and wait for a notification. It's going to actually identify certain VIN numbers from a time range, and those VIN numbers affected will get issued with a recall. And what does the recall actually address? That if your car is affected by this recall, you're going to have to get a brand new transmission. Yes, I said that correctly. A brand new transmission. And at this point, we don't even know how that's going to play out, because I don't think GM has enough transmissions to keep the production numbers up that they have currently going and replace the transmissions in the field that they have identified as bad. So if you ask me, that means production numbers are going to slow down, and we're going to see more cars going into the shop to get transmissions replaced. Look out for the information coming out for the recalls for the 2023 through 2024 model year cars up under the certain VIN number qualifications. And if you have one, I know this is not the information you were looking to hear, but it may be some time before you get your car back up and running. But I still think it's a great vehicle to own and a fun drive. If you feel like I missed something in this conversation, go ahead, drop in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think about the information I just shared. But as always, ICNV Drivers Edition. Go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Join the ICNV Drivers Edition community. Like I stated before, this is an interactive community. We like to have fun here, and we also talk about topics that come up dealing with all cars, not just Corvettes, but I happen to own one now, so it kind of dominates the channel. But at the same time, if you have any conversation you'd like to bring up, hit me up in one of my social media platforms or in the comments below. And if it's an interesting topic, I will make a video on it. Before I let you go, remember to chase your dreams, build your visions. It is okay to be unique. And as always, stay safe, stay blessed. And I will see you in these streets. Peace.